Michael.
Lino.
Another Wednesday.
Lino. Another Wednesday. Another Wednesday.
Another Wednesday.
Another Wednesday.
We did it at 4:30, which I was surprised we did. I wasn't expecting us to be ready at 4:30 today.
Well, we haven't had the best track record like the past couple of days.
But we made it here. We're here.
Yeah, at least there's no fire alarm today.
Oh, thank goodness.
Remember that? Yeah. Wow.
Thank you for you guys being here.
You're great.
And
what's going on with our video on the end?
I don't know.
We're distracted because our little loading screen. Oh, there we are.
It might be having a hiccup, but that's fine.
We're good.
So in all honesty, we had our show last week about Lent and Ash Wednesday,
right?
And we went like, okay, we're gonna do next week. I said, well, we talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. And
now it's later. It is later.
But we figured it out. However, we did come up with a theme or a subject for today.
Yeah, there's always something to talk about.
And because I have the mass tomorrow here at St. Michael's College, I came to realize.
Let's get a drum roll because this is maybe the most important. This is the day that everybody just thinks about all throughout the church year. It's like there's Easter, Christmas, and then there's...
And tomorrow the church celebrates the Church of Peter.
The Chair of St. Peter.
Chair of St. Peter.
So it's like, I'm sure in your list of Christian celebrations, that's way near the top of the pyramid. Right. We're being a little flippant about it, but it is funny. It's obviously on the church calendar for a reason, and it means something very specific.
Yeah, and the good thing about this is that, or not the good thing, but the funny thing that we usually do, or we get to do at least once a year, is that to say that we're worshiping furniture.
Worshiping furniture.
But that's not the case, of course.
This is not, a matter of interior decoration, as it were. No. But the Chair of Peter, C-H-A-I-R. Yeah. It is a chair.
A chair. Yeah.
What does it mean? We'll talk about it.
Well, yeah. To get us in
Let's get
subject.
Rolling. Let's get rolling. Yeah.
So remember that Jesus was called Rabbi, or the teacher. And then the gospel reading for tomorrow is when Jesus says that upon this rock, meaning Peter, he will build his church.
Right.
So Peter became, among the 12 apostles, the guy who was going to be the cement, if you will, the foundation of the church. And so Peter and the other apostles, after the resurrection of Jesus and the coming of the Holy Spirit, they became rabbis too. They became teachers.
Exactly.
So the way they used to teach in Jesus' time and the apostles' time was that the disciples or the apostles will sit on the ground, and then the teacher will sit on a chair.
Sit in a chair.
Like this. And then the disciples will be literally at the feet of the teacher, learning what the teacher had to say.
Exactly.
So that's why we have an image like that in the Gospel of Matthew, when Jesus is given the Sermon of the Mount. The scripture says that they went to the mountain and Jesus sat down and taught the people. So that's the idea of celebrating the Chair of Peter. We're not celebrating a chair like a physical thing where you sit.
It's what the chair represents.
Exactly.
And chairs, for those that may not know, they do, for that reason, have a particular function or a particular symbolic role, at least in the Catholic Church specifically.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think the best way to sort of segue into this. So as you say, Jesus picked these apostles that then became teachers in their own right.
Yep.
And then what happens? I mean, the apostles themselves died, but they had passed the message on to other people. Who would then pass it on to other people. And then they pass it on to other people. You see where the pattern is going. So the term for that I was taught is apostolic succession, which means that Jesus named people as apostles. Those apostles name other apostles. So you have sort of this unbroken line of teaching authority that goes down through the centuries. And the way that the Catholic Church views that role now is that it's held by people called bishops, who are the ones that sort of have that power and authority to teach in that way. And similar to the time of Jesus, as a symbol of their teaching, they themselves have physical chairs. And the word for that would be cathedra, which is the Greek word. And so the church of a bishop So where the bishop's chair is known as a cathedral for that reason, the church where the chair is. So a cathedral isn't just a big, grand church, though most of them are.
Yep.
It's the church that holds the chair of the bishop, where the bishop's seat is in that way. And the bishops are the ones that have that teaching authority.
I don't know if I said this before in our videos, but one of the... so most of us, we see the bishop when the bishop comes to our parishes for any reason, most likely to do confirmation or to do any kind of sacramental stuff. So most of us Christians or Catholics, we don't see the bishop preaching as his cathedra.
Right.
As I said, we see him in our parishes. But there's one specific time when we see this preaching from the chair, this teaching from the chair, this rabbinic, if you will, teaching, and it's beautiful because it's the day of ordination. So at least you and I got to experience it twice in our lives.
That's true.
So during the sacrament of orders, after the gospel, the rite says that a chair has to be put in front of the altar, and 2 other chairs next to it for the ministers next to the bishop. But this has been the only case that I've seen a bishop preaching from a chair, and the bishop sits on the chair, and from there preaches the homily.
Right.
From there teaches what he has to teach about the sacrament of orders and what it has to do. So it's a beautiful.
Yeah, the symbolism is really
rich. Is really rich. So is the bishop using his ministry as one of the apostles to confer orders on the priest. So I think it's beautiful, and again, it's the only time I've seen a bishop sitting on the chair to preach, because they usually preach from the ambo or standing.
If I'm not mistaken, in the rubrics, this is just really going into trivia now, but I think in the rubrics it says that a priest can preach from the chair. Is that,
from the
counter.
Yeah.
You just don't see it often, but I guess it can be done.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful scene, and now that I don't know why I went to the sacrament of orders, I guess, but the other beautiful thing about the sacrament of orders, and it happens also on the chair, is that we priests, when we ordain priest, our hands are anointed with the Holy Chrism, and the bishop does this while sitting on the chair.
Right.
So our hands, by the anointing with the Holy Chrism, we get consecrated to God, and by that consecration, we get to do the sacraments. But it happens on the chair when the bishop is on the chair. So I think that the symbolism there, like being the apostle, like representing that succession, it's a beautiful sign. So I don't know.
Absolutely.
I don't know what it came to my mind, but it did happen.
It's all interconnected. It's all interconnected, and I think it's all interesting. So that's bishops and chairs and all that good stuff. But tomorrow is a very specific bishop and a very specific chair, I suppose. So we call this the chair.
The chair of Peter.
So in the eyes of the church, Lino, what's the deal with Peter?
Okay. Well,
where to begin?
Okay. Peter, as I said, it's known as the first bishop of Rome.
Okay.
The first pope.
So I'm going to back up. Sort of repeat what you said, I think, in different terms. So when we talk about this office of pope, okay, when someone is named pope, they're not ordained to a different position.
Nope.
It's nothing like that. It's the office of having, of being rather, the bishop of Rome. That's what makes you the pope. So whoever happens to be the bishop of Rome, according to church tradition, is the head of the church on earth. But the term bishop of Rome, so there's a bishop of Burlington, you were ordained by the bishop of Ogdensburg in New York. So every bishop has a town, has a place that they're in charge of. For the pope, he's in charge of Rome. He's the bishop of Rome.
That's his diocese.
But since Rome is the universal head of the church, then his authority spreads farther than that. But
so traditionally, again, following that scripture where Jesus says that Peter will be the foundation of the church, traditionally we have considered to be Rome kind of the center of Christianity, or where the power is. So Peter was an apostle just like the others.
Right.
the Bishop of Rome for Pope Francis is a bishop like any other bishop,
right?
And so the tradition is that we consider the Bishop of Rome the one to be kind of like the head of the apostolic community, or they call it the now I'm gonna forget the words, of course, the
College of Bishops.
The College of Bishops. That's what I'm thinking. So yeah, it's kind of
we're getting there.
It was a way to also, I think it's a way to organize the church.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you said, the Bishop of Rome, when he gets elected, doesn't get another ordination, doesn't get anything special.
Right.
Just the recognition of his brothers, bishops, I guess.
Exactly.
But there's nothing. There's a ritual mass they do for the installation of the Pope, I guess.
But it's not a sacrament.
It's not a sacrament. Like
other than the Eucharistic.
Yeah.
It's not in and of itself a sacrament. So, if the popes kind of trace their lineage back to Peter, and if Peter was a bishop, we can assume that either figuratively or literally, Peter had a chair in the sense of some sort of a symbol of his teaching authority as a church. Now, careful. When I say that, I don't mean we're going to dig up literally the chair of Peter. That's not what I mean. But in the sense of, if we view this notion of a chair as some sort of a symbol of authority or whatever it is, Peter having a special position as Bishop of Rome according to Catholic tradition, as one of the handpicked members of Jesus' apostles, I guess when I say that, he has more teaching authority than, say, the average Joe on the street.
No, right. Yeah.
In that time. So when we talk about this chair of Peter, it's not so much a literal entity or literal object, rather than it is a recognition of the successors, at least, of Peter, the popes, having some sort of authority in the church.
Yeah, and that's why the church, when a new pope has to be elected, puts so much care and so much prayer into it. And it's not a trivial thing that happens every day, but it also has to be a man, a good man, of course.
Yeah.
Also a good man of the church.
Exactly.
A balanced man.
They wouldn't want me to be pope for that reason, but
or me.
I didn't want to say that, but don't hold your breath.
Yeah. The other interesting thing is that, and we see that in the early history of the church, that the pope doesn't have to be a cardinal or a priest.
Exactly. That's kind of a custom that's developed, but it's not inherent to the office.
The pope can be any baptized male.
Right.
So any baptized male can be, if the cardinals vote for that person, that person gets to be pope. And then what they usually do is that they, before naming this person, this man, the Bishop of Rome, they will confirm them the sacraments to get him there. Because that was, and at the beginning of the church, this also was not necessarily by election, but it also was sometimes done by acclamation. I at this point, out of the top of my head, I don't remember any pope that was elected by acclamation.
I can't remember a pope, but I can remember, you've probably heard this, one of the saints in the early church, St. Ambrose, he was a kind of a civil figure, like a politician, but the people of Milan, his city, thought that he was the best to become bishop. So I don't even know if he was Christian at that time period, but he was baptized, he was ordained, he was named as bishop, like boom, 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 and he went on to become a great saint of the church. So these things have happened in the past. I'm not saying it's likely now, but they, it's within the realm of theory. This is like some super Catholic trivia here.
Sure.
I'm sure you'll probably know this, but a lot of people are kind of confused by this. So if we're talking about a bishop being connected to a cathedra, to a cathedral, where is the Pope's cathedral, and what is it?
I know. I know it's not St. Peter's.
It's not St. Peter's.
I know that. I think it's St. John Lateran.
It is. Yay!
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know because St. Peter's is the big church in the Vatican, and it's the biggest church, and all the stuff happens there. But for historical reasons, it's not actually the Pope's cathedral.
Yeah.
So
go figure.
Shrug your shoulders.
Because it's where the Pope sits down and teaches.
Exactly. Yeah. So and there's like an artifact there that they call the chair of Peter, which is just an artistic representation, but it's not the actual cathedra.
Okay.
You passed the test. A little pop quiz there.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna miss.
He was sweating for a minute there.
Yeah,
that's funny.
That must be the way that your students felt in your exam today.
I did give my students an exam today. It's funny. I don't know. It's always hard to tell where your students are at as a teacher.
Right. So that's and again, the other thing is that at the early, so most likely St. Peter didn't have a actual chair.
Right.
Remember that at the early days of the church, they still kept going to the temple, and they kept teaching about Jesus at the temple.
Right.
So they were kicked out of the temple later.
Right.
So by that time they didn't have churches the way we think about churches, and they wouldn't teach it the way we see it today.
Exactly.
So most likely Peter did not have a chair.
No.
But
so that's if I was awkward in the way that I phrased that earlier question or comment.
What we celebrate then in the church is the ministry
exactly
of St. Peter as the one chosen to be the one in charge of the church, or kind of to organize the church, and then all the ones that followed Peter throughout history. I think it's 200 and something popes.
I think we're on 266.
Yeah, something like that.
Pope Francis is 266, I believe. And there's a lot of fancy words sort of connected with this. So the ministry of the Pope is usually referred to as the Petrine Ministry, Petrine, because it's related to Peter. Petrine. I thought I had another comment about that, but I don't know if I do. But the
Pope.
Popes are good.
Right.
Usually, we like the Pope.
Yes. So yeah, there was something else. I forgot.
Boy, we're just knocking it out of the park here.
Yeah, we're doing great today. Sorry, folks.
I don't know. I mean, I know
you're asking trivia questions.
Oh boy.
So the trivia question was asking, what's the name of the second pope?
Oh, well, I know this is near and dear to your heart because according to tradition, the second pope was Saint Linus, and
no kidding.
The, I guess, Spanish equivalent of Linus is Lino.
Right.
Which apparently is not a common name in Spanish, is it? Or
not in my country.
Not in Venezuela, at least.
Yeah.
You're the only Lino that I know.
Oh, thank you, Michael.
And this is kind of a funny, I don't know how funny this is, but I'll share this story. One prayer that can be used during Mass is Eucharistic Prayer 1. It's the longest Eucharistic prayer. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Yep. It's the longest one, and there's options in it. And one of the options is there's brackets with all these lists of saints. You don't need to say all of them, but you can. I'm kind of the mindset that if you're going to do that prayer anyways, which is really long, you may as well do the whole thing. But I think it was Christmas or something, and Brian Cummings was saying Mass, and he did Eucharistic Prayer 1, which I was not expecting. And he did everything except for read that list that had Linus in it, so you did not get that name recognition.
No.
Which is sad.
And every time they do kind of the Roman canon, I
you gotta
listen carefully to see if people are going to name Pope Linus in the
When you were ordained either to the diaconate or to the priesthood for the Litany of Saints, did you have Saint Linus?
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I made a point that
that's cool. Because I bet Saint Linus is not often invoked at ordinations. So
but I made a point when I was putting together the program for my ordination that
we gotta have Linus in there.
I don't remember. I certainly don't remember it for the diaconal ordination because I was ordained back in Venezuela.
Okay, right.
But I was living here, so when I got there, it was pretty much get off the plane, get ordained.
Right.
So I didn't have the chance to. I wasn't too much involved in the organization of this. The local pastor, which was great, and he was awesome, and he actually made vestments particularly for that day.
Oh wow, that's cool.
So he the Edmundite that lived in the parish, myself, and the bishop who ordained me, we were all wearing kind of the same. Well, I was wearing the dalmatic, but we were wearing the same colors, the same symbols. So it was beautiful.
Very cool.
But again, I didn't have the chance to I didn't have too much input in my ordination. However, in my ordination here, I do remember that Father Richard Berube, one of our Edmundite brothers, he was kind of like in charge of the liturgical part of my ordination. I remember making that point that if we were going to do the Lunar Prayer of Saints, we had to include Saint Linus. And then I talked to the guy who does the music, kind of remind him that if he's going to skip anything, do not skip Saint Linus and don't skip Edmund. I mean, you can skip anyone else, but
these are the two.
But these are the two guys
on our team here.
Yeah, that we definitely have to mention. Yeah. So yeah, I did make a that
special request. I had one, since we're on this topic now, I had one special request for a saint for my Litany of the Saints. Can you guess who it was?
Saint Joan of Arc.
Exactly. Yep. So she got invoked.
And if you wanted more trivia, my dad's name was Lino Clemente.
Okay.
And Clemente was the second.
That's the third pope. Oh wow!
So my dad had them.
was his dad's name Pedro? That would be great because then you would have the whole.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So yeah. Trivia. The second pope was Linus, and the third one was Clement. Yep.
Yeah, that's what we got. But the reason that we celebrate this feast tomorrow, the Chair of Peter, is just a way to understand, recognize, talk about the whole ministry of the Pope and what that means for the Church.
Yeah, and also I think to recognize the work of Peter. I mean, not that the other apostles did not do their job; they did, and they did it great, and they. Most of them lost their life because what they did and because bringing the word of God. But let's say that Peter had that extra responsibility, if you will, not only to bring the gospel to wherever he went, but also had the responsibility, if you will, to be the backbone or the first stone of the church.
Yeah.
So I think that deserves some
absolutely. And it's also, I wish I had done a little more research on this because it's just in the back of my mind now. I know that the dating, why this feast is on this day, is connected in some way to the conversion of St. Paul, which was a feast a couple weeks back. Like the two of those are kind of partnered in some way because Peter and Paul are usually mentioned in the same breath. They both met their martyrdom at the same time in Rome, both these very influential apostolic figures. Yeah,
and only that, I mean, we were talking about this morning. Peter is... if you will, the one who puts the church together and gets the church going. And St. Paul is kind of the first theologian of the church. So St. Paul is the one who gives us that theological background to what these guys experienced, because Paul had the theological expertise coming from a Pharisaic tradition,
rabbinic tradition.
So that's why we celebrate Paul and Peter together, because Paul and Peter become the two pillars.
Absolutely.
Well, all the apostles are pillars,
but Peter and Paul have
the ones
place.
that they put this together, and that's why the feast of Peter and Paul, we celebrate them both together.
We do. Good stuff.
Yeah.
And you will be celebrating Mass tomorrow. I'll need to.
I will. Yeah.
I have to talk with my pastor to see, because we had a Lenten mission. For 3 days, and I don't know if we've decided to be celebrating Mass tomorrow and Friday.
Yeah, and the good thing about the Chair of Peter is that it breaks for a little bit.
The Lenten
observation.
So you wear a different color.
So we can wear white tomorrow. And
recite the Gloria. And
and then there's another more time that we do this during Lent. You know what it is?
I'm thinking. Not... Sometimes it's the Annunciation, but not this year.
No.
What is it? I'm drawing a blank.
March 19th.
Oh, the Solemnity of St. Joseph.
St. Joseph.
That's right.
So St. Joseph is sometimes the only time during Lent that we get to see white.
That's true.
Yeah. And I know that because St. Joseph is the patron saint of a town in Venezuela, and there's a song. And so March 19th is always
big day
in my mind.
Very cool.
So... I think that's pretty much what we can say about Peter, his ministry, his chair. Hopefully this was instrumental. You get to learn something today.
I learned a couple things.
You did?
Yeah.
Well, you learned about my dad's names.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's fascinating to me.
So, as I said every week, please subscribe if you haven't done so. Like it or dislike it.
Boo.
Although we did so great today that we're gonna get a lot of
we're
dislikes
just all
today.
thumbs up. I mean, this is just
And
top-notch.
and if you have any comments, please
Let us know.
let do so. I've been reading all your comments, and I really appreciate them. I do not get to answer all of them because there are many, but I do try to at least give you a heart or a like in your comments. So please do so, and that lets us know that you're there and you care, and that you find this helpful and useful.
Yeah.
So it's been great today, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
And of course, now it's going to take me 3 hours.
Awkward pause as we go off air here.
So, again, oh my goodness. Now, see you next week.
Farewell.